Welcome to the Night Tube. I'm Stephen Knight, and I'm very fortunate to be joined by human rights activist Rahima Mahmut. Rahima, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Points out of 10 for the pronunciation of your name there.
10.
10, thank you. Very kind. I'm very pleased that we're getting to speak to each other today. I've been kind of following as much as possible where I can the reports coming out of China about the plight of the Uyghur Muslims, and it's very difficult to get solid information for obvious reasons. China are very hostile to the free press and any sort of criticism, but I've seen you out there, raising the issue, speaking about it at length, and from your own personal experiences as well. So before we get into that really, serious topic, maybe you could just tell us about your background as well, a little bit about yourself. How do you describe what you do?
Well, my work since coming to the UK, human rights activist, I'm also a singer, I have a music band, so a Silk Road Collective. But since 2017, after the situation became worse, and now we are talking about genocide, so I am almost working full-time, more than full-time, to raising awareness and trying my best to reach out to the government, to MPs, to the wider public, to, ask for help. And that is my current focus. Compared to everything else that I do in my life, this became the most important issue and most important thing for my daily life. Every single day.
So tell us a little bit about the Uyghur Muslims in general. I mean, how are they distinct from what you'd consider mainstream Islam? Where do they hail from? What sort of cultural differences could you point to?
Uyghurs are the Turkic Muslims. The closest cousins are the Uzbeks. And they culturally, linguistically, and religiously, and all, we are far more closer to Istanbul than Beijing. And the East Turkestan, I call it, the land the China occupied. The Chinese government call it Xinjiang, or Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. They claim that Xinjiang is always historically part of China, but Xinjiang means new frontier or new territory. It was occupied during the Qing dynasty. And so Uyghurs are and the East Turkestan is the ancestral homeland for the Uyghurs. And therefore, this is the problem for the Chinese government. There is often fear that the Uyghur will reclaim East Turkestan, will become independent. So just like Tibetans, I'm sure most people know about the Tibet situation, the oppression, and for over many decades. And the Uyghurs face exactly the same persecution from the Chinese government.
So you currently reside in the UK, is that correct?
Yes, I am.
And how long did you live in China before coming to the UK?
Well, I was born and brought up in a city called Gholja, the northern part of East Turkestan. I left my country in 2000 after witnessing the 1997 Gholja massacre. A peaceful protest was suppressed. The CCP brought in military, killing over 100 people, and then arrested over 4,000 to 5,000 Uyghurs in the city of Gholja. And that event made me to make decision to leave my country. I was teaching in a college. The surveillance already started very heavily. I mean, especially for the teachers and anyone in highly regarded in the community. You are often feel that you are being watched.
Why would they take an interest in you, the Chinese Communist Party? Why would they carry out surveillance in that area?
Well, as I already explained, because the Chinese government often believe there is this separatist movement independence movement. Or then after 9/11, they linked the Uyghur Muslim to the global terrorism, Islamic terrorists. And so they didn't trust anyone. Every Uyghur is a kind of potential splittist. So especially the educators, the teachers, they often watched very, very closely. And when I used to walk into the class and I sometimes saw a note on my desk and said, "Teacher, someone is listening." So the students, when they identify another Chinese teacher, just sneak into the class and listen. Because I had like 50, 60 students in the class, it's difficult for me to identify that someone new. And so that was not just me. And when I spoke to other Uyghur teachers and other ethnic minority teachers, they said the same thing, especially since 1997, that peaceful demonstration happened in the Uygurs city, which Chinese government claimed that is a separatist movement. In fact, it wasn't. It was after 3 months severe crackdown and arresting many, many young Muslim clerics. And the Uyghur, mainly young people, took to the street and demanded religious freedom and cultural freedom, which is guaranteed under the Chinese constitution. And that was a military crackdown, same as the what happened in 1989, the Tiananmen Square. I'm sure you must have heard about the June 4th massacre. So this was a massacre in my country. And many massacres happened over the years, over the decades, since 1949. But the world don't really know about it. Now I know the world realize there is a problem only after, 2017, when millions of the Uyghurs and other Turkic Muslims interned in the so-called re-education camp. But this is not new. I mean, only the scale is different. But from the 1949, since the occupation by the Chinese Communist Party, the disasters, one after another, it never ended. It has been basically much smaller scale than what is happening now.
I mean, I suppose one of the hallmarks and vital components of a liberal democracy is the right to worship, religious freedom. And you mentioned there that the CCP does recognise that in some form, which might come as a surprise to many people who see China as very hostile to other ideologies that aren't in sync with the state. So, I mean, how does religious freedom work in China? How free are you to identify openly and publicly as a Christian, for instance, or a Muslim, and assemble and worship? What sort of obstacles, if any, would be thrown in your way from doing that?
Well, I left my country in 2000, as I have told you, that historically, since the CCP occupied my country, in 1955, in order to defer the separatist movement, so the CCP named the region Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, just like Tibet Autonomous Region. So under the autonomy constitution, the Uyghurs has the full freedom to speak the language, to practice religion. Even officially, the Uyghur language in all the big signs, the Uyghur language comes first, and second is the Chinese. So the autonomy law, in theory, that we have the self-determination rights, and we have full right of worship and practice our culture, speak our language, and there is no one should force Uyghurs to go to Chinese school. Uyghurs has a right to have their own schools, universities. But this changed gradually. And during the Cultural Revolution, there was terrible crackdown, but this was throughout China. It was not specifically targeting the East Turkestan Uyghurs or Tibetans. This happened throughout China. But of course, the Uyghurs and Tibetans, Mongolians, other ethnic groups suffered most because of the cultural difference, also religious difference, and we spoke different languages. The crackdown started since the early 90s, after we had the brief kind of freedom during the 80s. After the Cultural Revolution, there is a revival of religion in East Turkestan. And China started to worry that this kind of revival of culture and the religion after this 20 years of extreme suppression during the Cultural Revolution. And they realized that if Uyghurs reclaim their culture, reclaim their language and the religion, then there will be a strong sense of independent movement. So that was the main worry that what the CCP had. So, but since the Xi Jinping took power, this human rights situation throughout China, it became worse. And you might have heard about the how human rights lawyers, Chinese human rights lawyers, been imprisoned since he took power. So that religious persecution, it became almost just like the time during the Cultural Revolution. So the worst suffered people are the Muslims and the Tibetans and the Falun Gong people. You must have heard, and they are Buddhists, but because they are the way of how they practice is different from the mainstream, the Buddhism what the Chinese government believe. And of course, Christian Chinese. During my interpreting work, I interpreted for many Falun Gong survivors and Christian people who were persecuted and left China, seek asylum here. So these persecutions is very similar. So for the CCP, if they believe that you are the threat, then they come after you. You're not safe.
Yeah. So, I mean, the CCP they're notoriously hostile to the free press, to dissidents, to anyone who goes against the state ideologically. And we're hearing a lot of things coming out of China, various reports ranging from, concentration camps, forced labor, forced sterilization, organ harvesting, genocides. The word genocide's been used a lot, obviously. And I'm just wondering, what is your perception of what is actually happening, and how are we able to verify it in any sort of objective manner, given the control of information that China has?
Yeah, thank you. This is a very good question. Even though the Chinese government completely blocked, any news to, any news leakage, I would say, they went at lengths to persecute the people who have a family living abroad. For example, I lost contact with my own family, my sisters and my brothers, since January 2017. And after 2 months, I couldn't get hold of them from October 2016. And then the last phone call when I had with my eldest brother on the 3rd of January 2017, when I asked him why no one is answering my phone call. And he said they did the right thing, and please leave us in God's hands. Soon after that exchange, and there are news about this mass detention started. So we learned that the people either summoned to the police station, or police would just come to the houses and place black hood over the head and take people away. And in some cases, the entire family, leaving young children in the house alone, and then taking away all the adults. And a lot of news is through the word of mouth, and also some Uyghurs managed to contact some family members inside the country, inside the region, especially people in Turkey. A lot of them still continued using WeChat and other apps. Also, there are Uyghurs very bravely reached out to like Radio Free Asia, our one of them very major media news reports in America, Radio Free Asia. And also some reporters from Radio Free Asia. They are very skilled reporters. They would call up the local government or the police stations or the villages and just ask questions. And a lot of them unguarded, that they didn't know they were speaking to journalists from, US, and they gave it away. Said we have arrested 10% of the population, or we have collected thousands of prayer mats, and we have burned books. We've been. So this is actually came out directly from people over there. And also there were leaked documents, and as well as the official Chinese government's notices. Their notices that is displayed and on some open kind of public places.
So, with you saying that a number of officials have slipped up and give away information and not realising who they're speaking to, and how can we get a sort of idea of what the scale of this horrible issue is in terms of concentration camps? You said something, I think you said something like 10% of the population. I think I read somewhere there's 12 million Uyghurs in the region. So, I mean, these concentration camps must be absolutely brimming with people. I mean, how is it possible to keep something as large scale as that out of the eyes of anyone who wants to expose it?
Absolutely. The CCP wanted to completely block the information, wanted to fool the world that they built these facilities only to re-educate the backward, uneducated Uyghurs that, who are the troublemakers, in order to stabilize the region, to develop, to lift, or called poverty elevated programs, etc., etc. If you read the Chinese propaganda, you will be convinced that they are doing the right thing. But in reality, these concentration camps are the torture camps. It's one of those, just like okay, I become a bit emotional when I talk about this. It's just so painful to even talk about these things. So how the world learned about it? One, the satellite images of these camps, the scale, the size of these. Also, these independent researchers like Dr. Adrian Zenz, who is the China expert, and many other independent researchers who visited the region. Some visited the region, some analyzed the Chinese government's own sources, and wrote the report, based on all this evidence. Also, the reporters like John Sudowitz, for example, from the BBC, who reported from inside the region. He was in one of his reports, he was outside the Dabanchin camp, just outskirts of Urumqi, the capital of the Uyghur region, which can hold up to 30 to 40,000 Uyghurs. And the satellite image of this barbed wire and you can identify these are not an ordinary facilities, these are prisons. Then in early 2018, some camp survivors, because of they are being foreign nationals, were released from camps after serving many months, and one of whom is Umar Bakali, and he revealed his ordeal while he was arrested and placed in one of these facilities. And he revealed that this brainwashing campaign and our people are forced to denounce their religion, language and culture. They were forced to eat pork and all this from when we compare what we already heard from word of mouth, what is happening, then the accounts from the people who had an experience, spent many months in these camps. Later, we had more detainees were released, like Mihrigul Tursun, Zümrət Davud, and Gulbahar Jalolova. And all these camp survivors gave very similar detail of the overcrowding situation, the food deprivation, sleep deprivation, and the lack of sanitary and torture. Revealed people disappearing after being taken for questioning. And Mihrigul revealed that 9 deaths during her detention, 9 women lost their life, and 2 teachers, ex-camp teachers, one now living in Holland, another one lives in Sweden, and both revealed very similar accounts of how women and men are subjected to torture and brainwashing education. All people are had shaven, wearing same color uniform, and shackled and chained. And these are the kind of image that we heard. And later you must have seen that drone footage of how this man was shackled and had shaven. And also in November 2019, there was a huge leak, classified document, China cable and other leak of 407 pages of the classified document and leaked to the press. And that revealed what the Chinese governments, in their own words, for example, Xi Jinping said, show no mercy. Show no mercy in one of his speech. And those documents revealed the pre-planned operation since 2014, and who is behind the architect of these camps, and said the Chen Quanguo, the party secretary of the region, he said these facilities, these people must be taught like school. It must be taught like school, manage like military, and defend like a prison. So taught like school, manage like a military, and defend like a school. And in also the government's own documents, he said the Uyghurs, they are like a malignant tumor, and the Islam is like a mental disease.
And these are official state comments and documents. Official
in Chinese, in Chinese. So the Uyghurs and they are the malignant tumor. It said that because these terrorists, they are the malignant tumor, and the Islam is a mental disease, and you cannot uproot weeds among the crops one by one. You must use chemical to kill them all. We are not making up these. Only people, when they listen, when they read, when they research these documents, they can believe why I say this is genocide. This is genocide.
Yeah, I mean, that's shocking, and obviously I can appreciate something like this will have a big emotional effect on you, and I it is a very distressing thing to contemplate. And when you talk about concentration camps and shaving heads and shackling people and transporting people and rounding them up in a prison facility, barbed wire, etc., it's very evocative of the plight of the Jews, which is well documented at the hands of the Nazi regime. And one of the things that came out of that period of history was this concerted idea of never again. That was the phrase we'd hear. That's what everyone thought was the best response to this, the best way to rally around it, to learn from history and make sure nothing like that ever happened again. And it just feels to me that, especially in terms of the West, there doesn't seem much of an adequate response or even interest from a lot of the major players, a lot of the human rights groups. Now, I just want to get your perception of why you feel there seems to be very little movement in that regard. Can it be put down to a sort of sense of apathy, or can it be traced to the fact that it is just very, very difficult to get concrete information to act on?
It's not about not getting concrete information. As I have explained to you, there are information. There are Chinese government's own leaked documents.
Yeah.
And we have researchers like Dr. Adrian Zenz, who did very in-depth research about the forced sterilization and forced birth control. Last year, it was the report was published. And we have these women came forward, especially recently. This gang rapes in the camps is a systematic gang rapes. Both the ex-camp teachers and the survivors are revealed. And Tusnais Yavudun, who appeared on the BBC, who's very brave. She's just one person, and she came forward, and she was gang raped 3 times, and she said that every woman, in that camp that she knows that suffered this. And she described at night how this man they didn't wear police uniform. They wore masks and wore glasses, so didn't disguise their face, and they pick the women and after midnight. And this has been happening. And the women, especially when they describe this from different regions, they were kept in prisons in different regions, different camps. But the similarity is shocking. This is as if it's a written order that these guards are carrying out these orders. And I just want to share Gulzira Awul Kanqzi in our recent interview. This was how she described in the very first camp she was taken. And this is a woman who lived in a mountain, in a Kazakh woman. And she was arrested because she lived in Kazakhstan, and for that reason. And this is what she said. When I was there 5 days, we went outside to the toilet. On the way there, I saw 2 big caverns, like the ones we used for vegetable storage. Piles of car tiles encircled the entrance to the caverns. And the base of the caverns was cement, was concrete cement. Both of the caverns were the length of human body. Then occasionally, I asked the teacher about the holes. And the teacher said, it is a place where we deal with dead bodies. I was so shocked and I couldn't feel my arms and legs. And she said, obey the rules and do whatever they say and try to get out safely. You think about the rubber tiles. You can imagine, the whole length of human body. When you connect to the genocides in many other parts of the world, how they burned the body using the tire, the rubber tire, because then you don't smell the flesh, you only smell the rubber. The world is not really taking this seriously, or even they know, they are aware, but the economical power, the greed, and the trade, even in this country, seems so important than people. You just imagine me. I have 9 siblings living there, all my friends, my extended families, and the people that I know, especially the most well-known scholars, professors, and writers, and poets, and singers, gone, taken away, one by one since 2017. Philanthropists, writers, editors, filmmakers, whoever known within the society, within the Uyghur community, well respected by the Uyghurs, taken away. And yet, when you compare the scale, what is happening, and the silence, it really, really makes you, angry. But I try not to angry, because if I am angry, if I become too distressed, I cannot focus on my work. I try still hope, I try to reach out, calmly as best as I can. But sometimes, how many times in a day I kept telling myself, deep breathe, just deep breathe, because I feel I needed that, because it's so difficult. It's so, so difficult.
No, I understand. And it must be very frustrating. It must feel almost like a betrayal in many ways. So I suppose with that in mind, what sort of things do you think could be done? Because you've already pointed out that China is this huge economic superpower. It's very difficult to take a hard line on China when there are so many, invested interests in terms of trade, as you pointed out. How is it even possible to push back at a superstate like China in any meaningful sense that they'll see and appreciate and take notice of? Because it just feels like every time a country is critical of China vocally, China respond with hostility, and they can do so because it's almost a case of we need them more than they need us. And that's a very, very unfortunate situation when you throw in the human rights abuses that you're detailing.
I just want to share this one tweet from Graham Stout. Is that Stout?
How are you spelling it?
Stuart. Stuart, yeah. Graham Stuart. I better spell his name correctly. So this is a tweet that I read last night by Graham Stuart MP. He said, in light of recent Lunar New Year celebrations, I spoke to a round table with Boris Johnson and the UK that trade with China. Great to talk about. We can support exporters and build on record-breaking 1 billion of UK-China-Hong Kong trade in 2019. When I read this last night, I cannot stop feeling upset. We have been campaigning the genocide amendment to the trade bill for some time now, twice. The first time The House of Commons, we lost in a very small, about 11 votes short. And then second vote at the House of Commons, it didn't happen because because the government combined the genocide amendment to the trade bill with another bill. Therefore, it didn't go ahead. And now we are campaigning this round three. The reason I am so involved in this campaign because we want the court or judicial system, or the court or the judiciary, to recognize what is happening to the Uyghur people and the other Turkic Muslims is genocide. And the genocide amendment to the trade bill, if that passes the House of Lords and the House of Commons, that gives the people like myself the opportunity to ask for the court in this country to determine what is happening is genocide. Because we know that the US has already declared it's a genocide. We also have the Essex Court Chamber legal opinion by the top lawyers. Legal opinion says there is credible evidence that the genocide and the crime against humanity is happening against the Uyghurs and other minorities in the region. And the importance of recognizing genocide, and then when it deals with the trade deal, that can be quite effective. That's what we believe, that a country which upholds human rights, which consider itself is one of the beacons of the human rights, shouldn't have any trade with a state that is committing genocide. From the state level, that's what we need, because Chinese government doing this to the Uyghurs, to the Tibetans, and to many, many vulnerable people because of its power, economic power, diplomatic power over UN, over many countries, including our country. And therefore, this is important. And for individuals, how we can do things effectively to reduce our dependency, our economic dependency, boycotting goods, especially goods that's made from slave labor, that is tainted by slave labor, high-tech goods, many high-tech companies that is operating in this country, they are complicit in the high-tech surveillance equipment that they have exported to the region, and that they are using this high-tech, this very high-tech surveillance equipments, controlling and detecting and arresting the Uyghurs, interning my people. So this has to be punished. Also, especially like cotton products, for example, 20% of world cotton comes from my region, from where I come from. And winter 2022 is around the corner, it's less than a year. And the ordinary people should really campaign against this. China shouldn't have the honor to hold 2022 Winter Olympic. This has no difference how Berlin had in 1935, the Berlin Olympic. So there are many things that people can do. The pressing one that people in this country write to your MP and ask them to support the genocide amendment. And press your government, your local politicians to take this matter in their own hands and pressure our government to take much stronger stance, not just the words, but the actions. actions, and also for the ordinary people, join the campaign, Stop Uyghur Genocide campaign.
I shall be sure to put links to that in the show notes for anyone watching or listening who wants to get some more information. Just have a look at the show notes for the links that I will provide. You mentioned the United States there in the context of them recognising it as a genocide. We've just come through 4 years of Donald Trump, and regardless of what you think of the man and all or you may think about the man, I'm not sure, or his shortcomings, he did take a very hardline stance, certainly in terms of rhetoric when it came to China. We've now got Joe Biden, and there was somewhat of a bit of a controversy recently regarding his comments on this situation. In my own personal view, they weren't particularly strong, but I do think they have been misrepresented by being cut out of context. I think some made the argument that he basically boiled the whole thing down to cultural differences, which came across as a bit of a misrepresentation to me. But I just wanted to get your view on how you feel the election victory of Joe Biden will play into this issue. Is this a good thing? Is he taking a strong enough stance? And what did you make of his recent comments, if you heard them, which I'm sure you did?
I was very, very disappointed and shocked because the Biden administration also recognized that they recognized this as a genocide. This genocide is ongoing. And we know Donald Trump, just like you said, that I disagree with many, many things. But there's one thing that the Uyghurs feel very grateful is that he did take very strong stance, and of course not him personally, but the administration, the Trump administration did have like Uyghur human rights law passed. I don't agree with many things, but I do feel that I believe many Uyghurs felt that they're very grateful to Trump administration that they did take very strong stance when compared to the rest of the world, sanctioning officials on the Magnitsky Acts. Many officials were sanctioned who are responsible for the atrocities, including entities like Public Security Bureau and including Xinjiang Production Corporation Corps, one of the biggest entity that runs the camps and also the responsible for running the slave labor, cotton trade and cotton manufacturing, all this. And high-tech, many high-tech brands were blacklisted. So we didn't see that in this country yet. We haven't seen those actions, really concrete actions in our country yet. I have been campaigning that the UK government should also follow the suit. With Biden administration, after they also declared this as genocide, and we have hoped that this maybe it's better for the Uyghur cause because Biden might be able to unite more countries in UN level and in the world stage, on the world stage. I can only say time will tell us. I can only say time will tell us. We do have worry. We are concerned, especially I'm concerned after his this very wobbly speech that
I think wobbly is the perfect word. I think he's a victim of his own incoherence.
This very wobbly speech, and I'm not going to say more, but we will continue to campaign. I know my friends in the US, there are many activists, Uyghurs and other people who is trying to do their best to, reach out to the government. And we're not going to stop, but the worry is very real. I can tell you. The worry is very real. Whether Biden will continue stand up stand up for the Uyghurs and, against China. It's a question. So the time will tell us. The time only, I cannot predict anything at the moment. I only hope that, he can unite the other governments, allies, and to take much stronger stance against China.
Yeah, we'll be watching you very closely, Mr. Biden, I suppose. So it might just be worth talking a little bit about your unique situation as somebody who's vocally active on this topic, pushing back against the CCP, exposing a lot of the atrocities and doing so whilst showing your face, for instance. And I'm just wondering about you in terms of security concerns. Have you felt in any particular danger doing the work you're doing, knowing very well how hostile the CCP is? I mean, do you have plans to visit China anytime soon, for instance, and would you be able to, do you think?
Since I left my country in 2000, I never went back. And even when I was campaigning in a very, very kind of in a very small scale, and I didn't take risk to return, because I know from many other cases, people who just attended one demonstration after returning there imprisoned, or their passport were confiscated. And that was one of the reasons that I didn't take that risk. But given the situation now so severe, it's just impossible. I would even avoid travel to any countries which is, not safe, like bordering countries. I wouldn't take that risk, because we have some activists shot in, for example, Turkey, only last year. And we have some Uygurs and also Kazakh activists being harassed in Kazakhstan. So the world is not the safe place for Uyghurs, regardless where you live. And people often ask me about if I am scared of, what is going to happen. But, nothing can get worse than this. It's the only way that I can cope with the situation is that using the leverage that I can speak freely in this country. And I don't know how safe here for me, but if I start to worry about if I am safe, and you cannot focus on your work. It's impossible. So in Uyghur, we have a word, say, "Tazbosan gedengce." What means is like, if you bold, it's better that full head become bold, not just little bit,
I like it.
How we can say best in English?
I have no idea. I don't think there's a similar expression, to be honest, but I certainly agree with the sentiment. For sure. So I suppose that the last thing I wanted to ask you, a lot of people will be curious at how something so large scale can go on in a country with such a huge population and not be a sort of equal response from the average Chinese citizen. So how is it that there isn't pushback in China to what's happening from non-Uyghurs, from the average Chinese citizen seeing what's happening and seeing it as a real sense of injustice? Are there any sort of grassroots movements there under the radar that we're not aware of?
Look, if you go to China, you wouldn't hear any news. You wouldn't know anything, what is happening to the Uyghur people. And the CCP propaganda is often, when you hear it, you will be so convinced that the Uyghurs and other ethnic minorities are benefiting from this big development, and they're lifting people from poverty and people are having much better life, and these people taken to these facilities, free accommodation and free training, etc., etc. There is no independent media or news report available for the Chinese people, including the other Uyghurs. And many Uyghurs, they were fooled. They thought that my sister or my brother taken for study. People still say they're taken for study. And this is one thing. I'm sure there are still a lot of young people who can, access to internet, who can cross the firewall and watch news and read news, BBC and other news outlets. But then again, even people want to basically to add their voices, they would be scared. It's just that the CCP ruling the country with iron fist. And, don't forget, in 1989, the students led young, most brightest, the future of China. I was there. I left the square in 98 on the 2nd of June. And the 4th of June, thousands were killed. They deployed military tanks, killing these peaceful protesters simply because they demanded democracy. They wanted to have a much more open and fair society. And that's how it happened. And when you compare the situation now under Xi Jinping, it's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. And, these I mentioned about the leaked documents. Those documents without Han Chinese official is impossible for the world to get hold of. These classified documents wouldn't possible for the Uyghur or any other ethnic officials, be access to those documents. And these people who leaked these documents, they had some sense of justice. They felt that the world need to know this. And in one of these documents, there is one Han official confessing how he made a mistake of releasing 7,000 Uyghurs from camps without getting permission from the higher authorities. So this is a kind of sense you can see. Even the Han Chinese people, they cannot take that risk. Liu Xiaobo, the man, the very first Nobel laureate, he died in prison, died in Chinese prison, and how the China punished Norway after he received the Nobel Peace Prize. And this is this China we are talking about. And people do not understand how brutal, how heinous, how evil this regime is.
Yeah, it is a really heartbreaking situation. And I understand how emotive it is for you to speak about. I understand how distressing it is to go into specifics. So for that reason alone, I'm incredibly grateful that you'd give up your time today to talk about it and raise awareness of it in a really coherent way. And I'm sure many of my listeners will want to act in a positive way and get involved any way they can. And I suppose before I let you get back to your afternoon, maybe you'd like to point them towards ways in which they can help again, things they can do, just to reiterate how they can affect some change in a way.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for providing me this platform.
It's my pleasure.
This is my job to reaching out to to whoever I can, for them to hear my voice, to hear the truth, what is happening, and to counter the disinformation by the CCP. And the number one thing, if you're living in the UK, is to call your MP or write to your MP, visit the Coalition for Genocide Response, genocideresponse.org. There you can send a letter, ready letter. It only takes you less than 30 seconds to send a letter to your MP. Ask your MP to support the genocide amendment. That's the one thing. And the second thing is be aware of what when you do shopping. And also, especially, I'm calling out to reaching out to the women, the women's power. You have seen the recent BBC report about this gang rape, sterilization, forced abortion, forced birth control of these women. And I would like you to join the campaign and support the Uyghurs, especially women. And the number one thing that you can do, the easiest thing, we women, we love shopping, we love our clothes, we spend more than men. And I want you to look at the label, to check the label, if possible, boycott the goods coming from China. And also they join the campaign, a genocide game, Winter 2022 Olympic, and reach out to the sponsors and ask them to stop sponsoring. If they don't, at least ask them to speak up for the using this platform, the Olympic, to make sure to shame the CCP that in the 21st century, the CCP is committing genocide against the Uyghur and Kazakh and many other minority ethnic people.
Rahima, thank you very much. I'll be sure to include links to what you've just mentioned there in the show notes so people can find them easily. But yeah, thanks once again, and thank you for all you're doing on this really, really massively important issue.
Thank you.